Thank you so much for tuning into my show, William Wallace for America, where, as you know, I am all about freedom, liberty, and getting involved in our country. The best way to solve all the problems in our country is to get more regular citizens involved, and that is what we have on my show today is a regular citizen. While some might refer to regular citizens that are involved as activists, I'm going to let our next guest tell you how he likes to word it because he's an active citizen who's simply involved in the future of America. He might say it a little bit differently, but also know that our show today is brought to you by the Wellness Company. If you believe in medical freedom like I do and many other people do, then go to twc.health and find ways to protect and also practice your medical freedom with a company that believes in it as much as you do with natural products. twc.health/WWFA is the link that will get you a discount. And don't forget about Patriot Mobile, another company that believes in our rights and freedoms as Americans. Bert, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate your time, and I'm looking forward to this conversation, which I'm going to share a little bit more with some people before we get started too. But thank you so much for being in there today.
Thanks for having me, William. I'm glad you're the first.
Well, I appreciate that. I tell you what, this is going to be the first interview, but I hopefully after we do this, more people are going to want to talk to you because I think the information you have is going to be very interesting from your perspective to many people who are in both the fights. Actually, I know you're in 3 fights. We're going to cover 2 of them on this show, and I'll let the audience know that the first one we're going to cover is going to be an abbreviation of one of the lawsuits that has your name on it. Then we're going to go into a lot more detail on the second lawsuit that has your name on it, and then we'll go a touch on the last. So the first one is going to be about election machines and how you're involved with that, which is a case that has some interesting twists and information for people on both sides of the aisle. The second thing that we're going to be talking about, which in more detail, is going to be the congressional maps, which I think is where the ankle biters came from, right? Or is that the third issue we're going to be talking about that you referred to as ankle biters? So if you notice your shirt in the video, it's got ankle biters and gaslighters and a really mean chihuahua.
Yeah.
But you're a Louisiana voter, which makes my point that as a voter, you have a lot more power because the politicians don't like voters, do they?
It makes you wonder. Uh, I testify a lot in the legislature. Uh, Talk to representatives and whatnot, and it just seems I'm either talking past them or you know I really don't know what it is. But as far as actually engaging and asking questions, um, I rarely get that.
Well, Bert Callais, let's give a little brief introduction of you. I would like to know, one, how you got involved or what ignited the spark for you to get involved because you're just a regular guy, and I'm not downplaying at all because you're you really have a lot of passion in you, but just a regular guy with a regular background that something sparked where you wanted to, let's just say, further further your involvement in election machines, and we'll talk about that. And then when we introduce the congressional maps, then you can tell us why you got involved with that fight. But let's focus on your first lawsuit that pertains to election machines in just a second. But first, tell us about you. Who are you? What got you involved? Where'd your passion come from?
So I joined the military when I was 21. I went into the Navy. I was an air traffic controller and served aboard USS Enterprise. We were involved in Operation Praying Mantis. You can look that up. I'm not going to get into that. But that was April 18th, 1988. I remember it well. Um, we sunk Iran's Navy in roughly 2 hours. That was Iran. That was in the Persian Gulf. Um, I took an oath then to defend and uphold the Constitution didn't quite know what all was in that Constitution. And I've learned a lot since then, more of the details about it. And I did a stint in the Navy, did that hitch and got out, went into business with my wife, landscape and retail nursery, and 7 years civilian, and 9/11 came along, and I reenlisted, but this time into the Louisiana National Guard. So I went from Navy to Army,
Wow.
and I had to
Not only
fast
not
track.
only do you serve two branches. That's amazing. And
Yeah,
and during two war times.
right. And it doesn't make me a Marine. Yeah, and but I don't claim that. Um, yeah, so and then got deployed to Iraq, and all this fast forward, all this lockdown, COVID stuff was going on, and yeah, I had gotten into trucking. Um, Hurricanes knocked my business out, knocked us out, knocked my house down. I figured I'd retool myself and went into trucking. And all this lockdown stuff was going on, and I was just couldn't get into a plant without wearing a mask. Wanted Some of them were asking for my vaccine records, and I was like, this world has gone mad. You know, I left Iraq with people who wore masks were trying to kill us, and we always wondered whether or not what was going on over there would ever follow us home. I remember having that conversation with a soldier that, we get a little philosophical in our, while we're sitting there, and some people call it foxhole stories or whatever. We were in an armored track, but I was in Iraq when they had their first election. Now, I can tell you this, they were not election machines sitting in warehouses when that election happened. It was done on paper ballots. I'm sure they were hand counted. And Iraq is not too much smaller than the state of Texas. So if you got your mind right, I believe it could happen. I thought it was crude and rudimentary, but they had to start from somewhere. Fast forward to these lockdowns, I started meeting people at the Capitol. That's when I first met you.
Mhm.
And yeah, I still have the pictures. I look at it often. But anyway, I just recall all that. And then I met some people this 2016 happened with Trump, and that was one thing. And then 2020, that election happened, and it really started raising some questions. We had uh, these committee meetings dealing with voting machines. I met some more folks with that. I listened to all the testimonies, and I just decided to stand up and speak on it and tell them what I experienced when in Iraq. Paper ballots, hand counted, the blue thumb. A lot of people recall that those little excerpts in the news. Those were reported back to us, and but I lived it. I actually saw it all. I mean, I was there.
So when you were there, did you witness when you witnessed paper ballots, hand count, blue thumb, for putting, for certification purposes, individual? Did you notice any major election fraud going on? Did it look fairly accurate from your perception? I mean, I know somebody's going to dissect that and like, well, behind the scenes and whatever, but I mean, from your perspective, did you feel it was being done properly, quickly, confidently?
Well, what I did know was all I knew at the time um, was that our military was involved in that. I mean, these people were 25 years dictatorship. They probably didn't know how to conduct an election. So our military personnel was involved in that. Um, my actual involvement, I was on the radio helping coordinate the protection parameters that were set up
Mm.
by our guardsmen, by our soldiers.
Right.
So I wasn't directly involved in that election. It's just I was present when it was going on, and of course we were getting CNN reports, Fox News reports, and those kinds of things while we were in the DFAC, which is the chow hall, and having our meals. We were able to catch some of the news while we were there. Plus, things were being discussed word of mouth while we were out there in the heat, dealing with that and drinking a lot of water. Just trying to protect the polls, the precincts where they were doing the actual voting.
Well, that's pretty interesting. So, so you saw it through. You saw fair elections. Like here in America, we can't imagine something in Iraq being fair. We would probably tend to think that it was rigged. But did you feel like they went smoothly? Uh, the counting went quickly and fairly accurately. Do you feel confident about that at the end?
Oh yeah, well, all I know is it was over with in a couple of days. I
Okay.
mean, they were basically at a point in time with, we have oh, what was it called, when we had the Continental Congress, before the Declaration of Independence and all, and the colonies elected representatives to have their Continental Congress, right? That was the stage they were actually in. They weren't electing a president or a representative per se to go into their Congress, their newly formed government. They were actually forming their government. So they were in the preliminary stages of forming their permanent government.
Right. But a lot of people forget that we had 7 U.S. presidents before George Washington. And a lot of people so George Washington was the first elected president under our new constitution, but there were other
Right.
presidents over the Continental Congress before that. So, all right, so let's fast forward a little bit. So you get out of the military, you make it home, you obviously retired from the military or your time was up to be out of the
Mhm.
military. You go into
Mhm.
the citizen world, you started a business with your wife, you go back into the civilian world, and you get involved at the Capitol. You start finding out more about elections. You start hearing more about it. Let's get to that first lawsuit that you have about election machines. What was it that put that on your radar? And what was it that made you file the lawsuit? And then tell us about the lawsuit.
Okay. Oh, wow. Leading up to that. So again, there was all these committee hearings about the election machines. And I started raising questions about it. And I did basically a one-man protest, if you want to call it that. Um, I went out in front of the Secretary of State's office with my American flag and a sign that says, "Who counts my vote?" Because now I really want to know. We're in a paper ballot, hand counted election. You would know who counts your vote, and if not, you could easily find out because that's your neighbor, right? Well, in the machines, and it just didn't dawn on me that, well, it started to then, that somebody's writing these programs, software somewhere. I don't know who they are. Um, I just wanted to start discovering for myself because I guess being a soldier, you go out in the trenches, you go out and you see for yourself. You put what they call put eyes on it.
Right.
And because there's intel that comes back, but people, you'll send a soldier out to go and put eyes on something and actually do the reconnaissance on that. So I I guess that was ingrained in me. It triggered it.
So you go out and you do this protest to try to bring other eyes on the topic. Now I'm going to
Well,
tell
I
you
wanted.
this is a point in this story where there are going to be a lot of people listening to your story that say, but we have the most fair and honest and accurate elections in America. Louisiana's elections are safe, they're secure, and I personally have heard both sides of it.
Mhm.
And I can certainly appreciate the accuracy that I'm told that we have. So
Mhm.
there's that side. And then I have another side that I go, well, if electronic databases are being hacked into every day, we hear these banks and big corporations that have super duper high tech security systems are constantly getting hacked into and ransomwared, and that there's people always breaking into these databases. I mean, look, the Louisiana's own driving, our own DMV database was broken into a couple of years ago. That story made headlines, but got swept under the rug fairly quickly. Our
June
own DMV
2023.
already got broken into.
Hmm.
We hear, everybody gets their credit cards hacked into, their bank accounts cracked into, they lose their identity. All this is done through electronics. My question is, if there are people interested in databases and people interested in your personal information, would there not be anybody who'd be interested in hacking into our voting database to be able to say that they hijacked an election? And while we say we're told they're secure and safe, we're told that about all these other big corporations also. And a lot of people's digital information is constantly getting hacked into. So I don't think that it's impossible. While I would like to believe and take great comfort in what we're told, that our elections in Louisiana are safe, accurate, transparent, and secure, I still, because I don't want to be caught off guard one day, I still go in the back of my head, isn't there a possibility that they could get hacked into? Is there a possibility that they can be manipulated through somebody breaking into and hacking it some way? Maybe it's on a precinct level, maybe it's on a state level. Is that the point, Bert, that you kind of started diving deeper? And I'll let you continue from there.
Oh, absolutely. When I was in Iraq, my roommate, that's exactly what he would do. I mean, he was working on getting certifications to be able to, when he got out of the service, to get into the cyber world and you know
So you were
be
exposed to
able to
somebody in the
challenge.
military that had something to do with elections, that was being trained to hack into the elections.
Not elections per se, but to be able to be a I guess you could, someone who would try to breach a system to test it.
Right. And we know, and look, and we know that China has been able to hack into our federal government's databases. So, maybe it's
Well,
nobody locally, maybe it's somebody from a foreign country that would like to hack into our database. Am I keying into things that might have sparked you? I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I want to kind of see where you are that got you to file this first lawsuit, so we can get to
oh
what
yeah,
made you
all of
file
it,
it and what it's about.
all of it. So all of what you just said, and again, on my little day that I was protesting, I met a Secretary of State employee. He says, "Hey, bud, I count your votes." And I said, "Okay, well, good to meet you." I'm not going to mention his name, but um, we shook hands, and I asked him, "So, do you write the source code?" And then he asked me. He said, "What in the hell is source code? What are you talking about, source code?" And I said, "Well, obviously you don't write it then." So anyway, he says, "Look, why don't you come on down? I'll show you how an election is, the procedures and whatnot during our actual election. I'll take you to the Board of Election Supervisors meeting down in New Orleans." And I did. Now I'm coming all the way from Baton Rouge, but I went there, and that was my first time that I ever witnessed the Board of Election Supervisors meeting on election day, when they are tabulating the absentee ballots. And I was learning from the ground up. I mean, it's the first time I'm seeing all this stuff. Fast forward, I now serve on the Board of Election Supervisors in my own parish, and I see it on a regular basis. And I can tell you, just to jump straight into it, I cannot determine voter intent. A machine's counting everything. We can't audit that machine. We don't even have the paper record to do so. And I I am reserved in signing off on something that I cannot see for myself and fully understand. That is, to me, is the big issue. I look at things on a common sense approach, a constitutional approach. Then I discovered in our Louisiana state constitution that all ballots shall be counted publicly. And even though I'm sitting right there, I still cannot determine how we went from 0 to 1,000 or 0 to 528 votes.
I'm gonna ask
How
you to
did that happen?
I'm gonna ask you again. Repeat what the Louisiana Constitution says about electronic voting machines.
So Article 11, Section 2 states that, and I'm going to add a little bit, but all ballots shall remain secret, meaning I cannot determine whose ballot belongs to whom. All I'm doing is looking at a ballot. Well, the first thing is we don't really even have ballots here in Louisiana, except for the absentee. The second part of that, well, actually, there's three parts. The second part of that is all ballots shall be counted publicly. And the third part of that is remain inviolate means until all disputes have been settled. So I'm disputing it right from the start. Uh, I object because again, I cannot determine how we got from A to B from
So
the beginning
I'm
to
going
the
to
end.
ask you one more time because I think it deserves a third repeat.
Hmm.
What does the Louisiana the Constitution say how we are supposed to count our ballots or do our election?
Publicly. All ballots shall be counted publicly. And even though the Board of Election Supervisors is present, they consider that the public. These are public meetings. Uh, all we end up with is a bunch of totals. I cannot determine voter intent. So publicly,
So all
it's
right,
it's all
so now
happening.
we're gonna summarize what action did you take, why you took it, which and summarize your first lawsuit so we can start with the second lawsuit here in just a minute that you're involved in, which has to do with congressional districts. But this first lawsuit, what made you file the lawsuit? What was the catalyst? We can know what led up to it. What was the catalyst? And
Mhm.
what exactly does the lawsuit say?
Okay, so well, let me take you back to this. I'm involved with a group who has been questioning this, testifying against our current system, giving their opinions on things. I got to know quite a number of folks, with those same concerns. You notice there's a lot of lawsuits that were going on around the country in Georgia, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Arizona, those swing states, and they always had issue with standing, no standing, because you have to have harm to have standing. And average citizen would bring a lawsuit, and they would always ruled as no standing. Well, me and my capacity as a board member, I told them, I said, I'm ready to testify, whatever we need to do. Finally, it came around to, would you like to be involved in the lawsuit because you could give us standing in your capacity? I said, absolutely. Because see, I actually witnessed it. You can't just talk about something um, uh, third party. This is what's happening. You have to actually witness the accident before you can
And what
become a
was the
witness.
accident that you witnessed? Again,
Yeah,
what was the
exactly. It's an accident every time we have an election, in my opinion. I'm
so
witnessing it.
the accident that you witnessed is that the votes are being counted through a machine and not publicly.
Correct. Correct. I cannot determine voter intent. None
And
of
that
them
was
can.
the standing that you used to file a lawsuit.
Yeah, as a board member, right? My official capacity as an election board member in my
So
past.
you filed a lawsuit based on the standing that the way we conduct elections violates our Louisiana state constitution. Is it that simple?
That and yeah, that is the foundation, the core principle beyond on the whole
So
thing. It's not, we have not been doing our elections, conducting our elections constitutionally for 5 6 decades since we've had these machines.
you filed a lawsuit.
Mhm.
Have you had your day in court yet?
Yes, we went to court. we went to court, and it's basically stalled. It went to Louisiana Court of Appeals, because since it's a constitutional issue, they argued, the Secretary of State's argued that the Attorney General should have been listed on that lawsuit, which our attorney had no issue with that, went ahead and did it. There was a couple of other questions about it. Those all were corrected, so to speak. But since then, it seems to have gone nowhere.
So when you say an appeal, to me, it sounds like there was a loss that you had to appeal. But am I hearing this right? And again, I'm asking like a regular person would, because I'm just to
Yeah,
know. So
it
that so
was
they basically said, hey, this lawsuit isn't filed correctly because it needs to name the attorney general,
correct.
and the Secretary of State, and so y'all added that in, and now you're waiting for a new court date, correct?
That's the last I've heard. Yes.
So what is going on with the waiting of the corrected court date? What's happening with the judge that's presiding over this? Why do you think it's stalling?
So the judge, it was unfair. Of course, hindsight being 2020, the judge that was initially hearing the case, she has integrity issues herself. And I didn't know this at the time this was all going on. It all came out afterwards. Her integrity issue is she's been removed from the bench because in her campaign she said she made the rank of captain, okay, which she attempted to do, was twice she was up for promotion to captain, but she never actually made it. And so that's kind of a stolen valor issue. Not only that, but I also understand that she claims that she went to overseas for both in Afghanistan and in Iraq. And from my understanding, she never left the United States.
Sounds like the
And
vice presidential candidate in the last election.
yeah, a lot of congressmen too served in Vietnam and never left the states and all this kind of stuff.
So
I
okay,
just find that to be horrible.
do you think that and we're gonna wrap up this lawsuit on this so we can start on the next one, which I think has even more interest to the people. So to wrap this one up, you basically what happened was, or do you think rather, that this lawsuit started to get a little convoluted because of the issue or the topic of it, and then maybe the reason why it didn't continue was because the judge got removed from the bench. So maybe there's a lot of things going on behind the scenes that are stopping this lawsuit from going further. Do you think it's just the judge now, or do you think there's some things going on behind the scenes that are holding it back from going further? I'll let you answer that question.
Yeah, yeah. So I think it's a multitude of things, predominantly funding for it. Uh, like I said, I'm just an average guy. uh, I gave that lawsuit standing. A lot of folks think that Trump's going to be able to just, one day fix all this. I don't really believe that. I believe that we have to, he can't do this alone. We have to come up from the bottom while he has pressure from the top. I mean, we have to really want this. If we have to change our mindset, and every election is going to be a work day, and it's going to
Yeah.
shift. You have to knock off work, your regular job, and get involved in your elections and the direction of your country.
It sounds to me like you're taking a pretty conservative approach to this. It sounds to me like you're just an average citizen who has concerns about the integrity of our elections. You saw that there's standing with our own constitution. You're just taking another step further as a way of evaluating the system and having it looked at from another perspective or direction to help ensure the integrity of our elections in the future. But you're not you're not really going way out into, I will say never land with it. you're kind of saying, look, we just need to look at it as it is. Our Constitution says it should be done this way, and it's not. Am I reading this the wrong way? Are you that mild mannered, or behind the scenes, are you really going, hey, there's a man behind the curtain doing all the counting? I'm being a little extreme for a reason. You get it. You get it.
I am. I am taking a common sense from what I see perspective or approach to it. It's just that obvious.
Okay.
Fall in line with the Constitution, and we got a lot of the battle won. Now, you want to get into the weeds of the cyber issues and all of that kind of stuff. Well, just like I did, and I'd leave that kind of stuff to my roommate. Leave that to the experts. Um, then they can actually investigate that kind of stuff.
Okay, that's great. I love hearing that.
Hopefully, yeah. Hopefully,
Well,
common sense brings in the science about it. Uh, I don't claim to be. I'm not. I'm far. I don't even have a computer. I don't want one. I figured the best way to stay out of trouble in the cyber world is to be on it as minimal as possible. I still write snail mail letters. Um, that's just how I operate. I still write checks. I don't pay online. I keep that to a minimum. And because of what I've learned through all of this stuff, it's a matter of self-preservation.
all right.
And
Well,
that's
this
that's how
I'm gonna
where
wrap
I'm
up
at
this
with that.
topic with this thought, and I'll let you comment before we move on to the next one, which is, you know, President Trump is saying he wants paper ballots. He wants, hand counted ballots. He wants back to old. I'll say back to old school, but look, I mean, like you say, old school is sometimes better than what's going on electronically in our electronic world where everything's getting hacked into, and that's
Mhm.
just look. I'm kind of in the middle on that. I love electronics and I love the new digital age where we can do things quicker, better, more efficiently, but I also watch our world getting hacked into and how we're being controlled oftentimes. And I think that if we shine a light on it, we can find ways to prevent it from happening and secure it better. So I don't know that going back is my answer as much as shining a light and making it more secure. But President Trump wants it, but there's some discrepancy between President Trump, Governor Jeff Landry, and Nancy Landry, our Secretary of State, where there's a lot of conflicting things that are being said about where elections should be, how we should be conducting them, and what they say here in Louisiana they're going to do. One last comment on that from you, Bert, please, before we go to the next topic.
Well, again, bringing it back to common sense, if people are involved in our elections, we could prosecute a person if there's some wrongdoing. We can't prosecute a machine. You can't bring a machine to court, but you could bring a person to court. So just with that alone, right there, this is how we could get some kind of resolution, and fix this. If prosecuting a person, machine does not care, okay, who it harms. And then the guy behind the machine, that's the Wizard of Oz. And that curtain needs to be rolled back. So
It,
I'm, I guess you could call me Toto. I don't know. I'm just
an
trying
ankle
to pull
biter
back
and a
that curtain.
gaslighter. I love it. It
Yeah,
sounds to me like you are simply trying to It sounds to me like you are simply trying to add another layer of accountability to our election system that aligns with our Constitution
right.
and in a way where the people benefit with accessibility, accountability, accuracy, and
Yep.
honest and fair elections. Is that correct? Yes or no?
Oh, yes, yes, indeed, it is.
Let's go on to the next. Let's go on to the next thing you got involved with.
Uh-huh.
So, Bert, the next issue that you got involved with was the congressional maps,
Yes.
and there's another lawsuit with your name on it. Pertaining to the congressional maps. And I'm going to get you after we get started there. I'm going to go to the end for just a second right now, which is Governor Jeff Landry just announced on Saturday in Alexandria at the Republican Leadership Conference that he's responsible for the good maps that we're going to get. It was his plan and his intention all along. This is part of his plan and intention to get us the best map. And we'll get to that, but before, I think the people are going to follow the path that you started here. Tell us what got you involved in the congressional maps. Let's get started with that.
I go to the Capitol. I've been testifying in the legislature against the maps because first I listened, and what I heard most often than not that race was a factor. No matter how many times they denied it, that subject kept coming up, and I knew just on a basics of the Constitution and common sense that you cannot draw a map based on the color of someone's skin. Period. End of story. Full stop. And but that's what I was hearing was going on. And so I started looking up, the Constitution, 14th, 15th Amendment. Then they brought in this idea about a federal judge being able to tell us how to draw a map. Well, there's the 10th Amendment right there because the states run their elections, not the federal government. And, you know, I said, I can't just sit here and listen to this. I'm going to say something. And I basically my testimony was I've worked for people who were black. I've had black employees. I served with blacks. They served with, we did our mission. And what I saw was going on was we are segregating ourselves again. We fought that battle long ago. I was born in '65. A lot of those battles was fought during that time, and in '68, and all throughout our history. And I just felt like we were reverting back to segregation, not desegregation. So I spoke up about it. Um, to make a long story short, I ended up meeting one of the lead attorneys, Paul Hurd, on the subject. And he warned the legislature, hey, you keep going with this, it's going to be litigated. I talked to him on the steps and I said, if you need any help with this, um, if they actually go through with this map, I want to be able to call you because I want to be able to help.
Because you're not
And
an activist. You are somebody who's actively involved in what?
defending our Constitution, upholding our values, and that's what America's really supposed to be about, trying to preserve that.
And that's why
So,
you got involved. So Paul, you met with Paul Hurd. You gave him those words that you were willing to help. What happened from there?
well, a whole herd, a whole host of litigation. I mean, more than I can even begin to regurgitate.
Well, let's talk
Uh,
about what was Governor Jeff Landry doing at that point. How was he getting involved in this at that point?
yeah, so that's uh, what I was going through, and what I did learn the day that I met Paul Hurd was the governor and the legislature was in a back room playing a um, four-tiered chess game with this. And I said, and when I heard that, my response was, yeah, and we the citizens are the sacrificial pawns. Well, I'm telling you, I'm not going to stand for that because we have value too. I don't know who you think you are, but we're here fighting this thing. Or are we being made fools of, or what? So if he wants to own all of this, the governor, I mean, he's messed around with a lot of people. Now, some people might think he's a genius, and he claims that he's been battling with this for 12 years now. You know, I really don't know. I can't get into his head, but what it appears is we've been played the entire time. You gave up a congressional seat unnecessarily so that you could manipulate things or do a backroom deal, a political favor here and there, so that you could become governor and then come down in here and manipulate things. What is really going on? That's
So what did you hear on how it was manipulated? Because I've just heard whispers that the Cleo Fields seat was something
exactly.
that was being guaranteed to Cleo in return for no runoff. I mean, you hear these things, and I'm just saying, I hear these things. I don't know whether they're true, accurate, or not. Is that what you're kind of alluding to when you talk about this? Can you go in a little bit more detail? Is there? I mean, are you?
I'm
Do you want to
basically
share it publicly? This the little extra detail to get to maybe gets more people involved. I don't know. You tell me.
so from what I'm understanding is, yeah, he did a deal with Cleo Fields to keep the street money off, and to hold back on the street money in the election, which so that right there tells me you know what's going on. Votes are being bought, right? And you know, and put Cleo Fields in as chairman of the Senate Government Affairs, who is directly now going to be able to oversee what maps are considered. He's controlling the committee,
Is this on this just a statewide level or on a nationwide level you're referring to?
just statewide, between
Okay.
him and the governor.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, it was a deal done between him and the governor.
Okay.
You know, the governor's, hey, look, keep the street money on out of it. I'm gonna ride in as governor. I'll make you Senate SGA committee chairman, and you pick your map.
And
Pick the map you want.
as a result, Garrett Graves loses his congressional seat and gets kicked out, and we get Cleo Fields, which on a nationwide level gives us a thinner majority in the House in DC.
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
Yeah, yeah,
So one less vote can mean a lot on close votes on a nationwide level. So this has been something that happens in Louisiana, but affects us on a national level. I'll let you continue from there because it look like you're going someplace else with this.
well, eh, like I said, sometimes I really got to spend some time um, deciphering all this stuff. What it's mind boggling. I just feel like we are being made pawns. You know, we're not fighting this fairly. It's backroom deals, political backroom deals, and I just feel like eventually this is all going to get us in trouble.
So it's almost like, one side is saying they're doing these maps to look out for the black voters to create another black district. You're saying what we're doing in essence is segregating ourselves, and it's being done illegally because you're not supposed to gerrymander. Let's use the correct terminology. You're not
Yeah,
supposed to gerrymander a district to basically by color, by race, or
correct.
ethnicity, and so they're violating the Constitution on one hand, and violating the rules and laws of our country on one hand, to
Mm,
be able to say it's for the greater good. It's okay that we're breaking the law. It's to protect the black voter. And if you're doing something to protect the minority, then it makes it okay to break the law, is kind of what they're saying. And you're saying it shouldn't be
yeah,
like that at all. And that's common sense, but we're watching our elected officials do things that aren't really involving common sense. Is that what your opinion?
yeah. It's backroom deals. It's if the governor's intent was to expose this whole shenanigans about what's going on and bring it all to light, yeah, of course he comes off as a genius,
In the
but
end,
in the same term, you're breaking the law, I guess, to try to expose the issues with what's going on currently, to try to rectify things. And I'm still trying to figure that out. To be honest
So
with you,
for
and I'm
so for
just
the
being
governor
honest
to
with you.
say so for the governor to say just this past week, here we are November 5th, this past week where he said, to give you a better map and spread it across America, it was my whole intention the whole time,
Yeah,
is at the very least disingenuous because in the beginning that's not how it started. Is that what I'm hearing correctly?
exactly
Okay.
that. Yeah.
See, look, I'm the guy that is in the listening to a lot of different people on a lot of different sides, and I hear all these different positions, and I think that the people of Louisiana need to be aware of it, not in a way where I'm saying that I'm right or you're right, and I'm promoting what you're saying, but when people have dialogue and they get out one side,
Hmm.
sometimes getting out one side, in this case your side, is the best way to get out the other side. So if there is another side, let's hope that your words get the other side out so we can find the truth. Would that be something
Yeah.
that's, I mean, am I thinking the wrong way?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Put it to you like this, William. It's like being in a dysfunctional household and you're growing up as a kid in a dysfunctional household. Mom and dad's fighting all the time. And they're playing their games. But the whole time you're sitting there um, as a child in that family, and your mind's just you're the ones who's suffering. Your graduation date got forgotten about, or you know what I'm saying?
Right, I do.
I'm trying to say here, you're in a dysfunctional family, and eventually a dysfunctional family does what? It falls apart. It falls apart, and the next thing you know, you're on your own. And where do where's the there's no security in that. There's no security in dysfunction. Um, Not that I gotta depend on somebody else for my security. You know, believe me, I know I take care of myself. But as a nation, it divides us. Look at the division that's being talked about. That's what depresses me so much. That's what I want to guard against. I want unity. I want the United States of America, not the divided states of the Western Hemisphere. You with me on that?
I'm with you. I hear you. Yes.
That's as cut and dried as I can put it.
I'm going to take,
That's how I like to eat my steak and potatoes. I don't want a bunch of fluff on it. A little salt and pepper, that's it. I'm done. I'm ready to eat my meal. And I just that's how I like to live life. A simple guy and with progress, not these shenanigans that's going on.
and what's interesting to me, if I take the two main thoughts in your two lawsuits,
Mhm.
ensuring election integrity and not letting people in power structure elections and the demographics of our districts,
Yeah.
then we protect our elections. We the people are protecting our elections, because when they can use the narratives to say they're doing it to have a black district, or what the black people are saying this in this state, and I certainly understand the reasoning. They're saying because they are 2/5, I think it is, or
Two
of the
thirds.
population, 2/3 of the population. Well,
Mhm.
yeah, then they should have 2/3 of the congressional seats. I certainly understand that. And we're using 2/3 as the proportion of the population of blacks to whites in Louisiana only pertaining to this subject. I'm being clear on that for a reason.
Yeah.
But that being said, I understand. Okay, you want equal representation. We all do. However, because of the way populations are and our constitution is, we cannot we cannot gerrymander, we cannot violate laws, we cannot use gerrymandering as a reason to violate a law to achieve a result, an outcome, which is the definition of equity versus equality, by the way.
Yeah.
We cannot engineer it. And if we allow our politicians to control the elections through gerrymandering and even the opportunity through a machine, if that's how they can do it later, or we don't oversee it now, they might be able to use it to their power later, which gives elected officials and people in control all the control and all the power. Is that kind of the gap that you're standing in, Bert?
Yeah. The manipulation. Manipulation is part of control and power. And then it's no longer a government by the people, right? We're the ones who are giving consent to the government. It's people who form the government. The government is not there to manipulate people, number one. And the thought that I had while you were speaking was the litmus test that I uh, went through this with was, let's just change a black district and let's put white district. That's absurd. And this is the same argument that Hashim Mopan alluded to in a Supreme Court hearing. If we were to make a all-white Democrat district, we would be going crazy, saying, "No way, you can't do that." So, are we to make an all-black Democrat district? I mean, make that make sense. Again, we're dividing ourselves when we're doing that. We're no longer the United States of America, of a conglomerate of people. We are now segregating ourselves into different factions again, all over again. And I just, that conflict to me does not have to happen. It it it's not it's not on in my everyday life. I see people from all walks of life all day long, and we we do just fine. This government manipulation that's going on is actually what's creating a division, and I can see why it is, because anytime money's involved in it, that's when you have people going battling. It always boils down to money. If we were to be a unified nation, a number of these things would go away. And you have these folks that are these billionaires or whatever, with their influence to basically drag this nation down and have us infighting.
We don't
That's
have
what's
to
going
be.
to tear us apart.
You're right. And we don't have to be unified on every single idea or personal belief. We
Right.
simply have to be unified on things that we know that we have in common, like human dignity, freedom,
Yeah.
liberty, fiscal responsibility, uh, opportunities for everybody. All of these things are values that people cherish amongst themselves, but are the same values that are used by big corporations,
Right.
powerful politicians and money people to divide us
Yeah.
up. They
What?
use the values that we hold near and dear to our hearts to divide us, and we can unify on values and basic principles. We don't have to and to be able to save America, protect America, and further America into more prosperity
Right.
while not having to even agree on personal issues.
Yeah.
I can disagree with somebody on 99% of things that they might believe in, but if we agree on fiscal responsibility, people, families, and prosperity for all, we're 99% of the way there
Well,
without agreeing on value on all of our values.
yeah, because here's what this redistricting District 6 did. Um, I'm down in West Baton Rouge, and the district gerrymanders all the way up into Shreveport. Now, people in Shreveport have no idea about the traffic issues that I'm having with that Baton Rouge bridge being plugged up on a daily basis. Okay, a 15-minute drive, 15 miles from here, can typically take me up to an hour, hour and a half to get to arrive at my destination. Right? People in Shreveport have no clue, because I do. I have some friends in Shreveport that I'm in con. They have no idea what's going on with the traffic issues. So what the redistricting did was destroyed our continuity. You know, it destroyed a consolidation of a local infrastructure issue that if we were concentrated and focused on, we could fix. People in Shreveport that have no idea about, they have their own problems that I don't have any idea about. And that's what redistricting did um, under these maps. So who suffers? Everybody in those areas suffer. It doesn't matter if you're white, black, Hispanic, it you're still suffering because you're not getting the real issue fixed at the time. The concentration of thought and remedy is not on those topics.
D- Bert, this is amazing. I could agree with you more. And it brings a lot of things to light when you put it that way, because the whole reason our founding fathers set up the representation by districts is so people in that specific area who have special needs, special needs, things in common, get represented by their needs in on a federal level. And you made a fantastic point, which is your needs are different from people who are essentially 150 miles from you, or
250 miles.
250 miles from you, right? So 250 miles from you by interstate, that is. um, and uh, and the needs are different, and everybody suffers. And just as we've seen them gerrymander a district for a certain way by color, if we give politicians that power, they only will use it later to gerrymander other districts for other needs in the future for in other ways. Okay,
Yep.
let's wrap up on this thought, because we get the premise, we get it, we spent a lot of time on it. What made you what Let's talk about how we know why you filed this court case. Let's talk about the steps you took to file it. What was the standing? What was the issue you used? And kind of update people to the point of where you'll tell us where it is now.
Okay, so it's not just me. There's 11 others, and one of them is
Just as
Representative
your
Mike.
name on it.
Yes, I'm what's called or deemed knighted the lead plaintiff.
Okay.
Okay, that's why my name is on it, and it's a good Louisiana last name, I guess, and but we have Representative Mike Johnson as one of the plaintiffs, State Representative Mike Johnson, not Congress. Um, and so, like I said, that's how it led up to it. I met Paul Hurd. He talked about it being litigated if they go through with the map. I was the first one to call him. Um, what ended up happening as far as the funding and all that goes, I think a conservative group out of DC um, funded a lot of it, funded it all actually. Um, we just gave it standing. Again, I started to understand. I didn't even know what standing meant in court, but now I'm fully understanding that what standing means, and that is those people who are in or listed in that, they have to be the ones who actually have harm coming their way. And it's affecting me, as well as the rest of the folks that are in it. They all have standing. So we gave it standing. That's my part in this, other than just testifying in the legislature. After that, the attorneys, Paul Hurd is the lead attorney, because he's from the state of Louisiana. He's out of Monroe. And The rest of the law team was out of a firm in Missouri, Kansas City, Missouri, that has experience in litigating this kind of thing.
This is pretty interesting. So where is the lawsuit right now?
Well, we're just waiting on a decision from the Supreme Court. It's all over. The fat lady just hasn't sung yet on this thing.
So the Supreme Court has heard the case,
Yep.
and they are reviewing it, and you're waiting for them to give an answer and say, here's our answer on Calais versus Louisiana. Is that correct?
Yes. Now, I do believe that this could have been argued in the state of Louisiana and decided in the state of Louisiana, but our Secretary of State put in an amicus brief, and which also included a stay after the new map was chosen. These redistricting maps were chosen. So it was continuing, but she asked for a stay, which put a halt on it all and was granted. And the reason that she gave was, I have an election to conduct and I have a certain timeline to do it in. And if we go through this court procedure, I won't be able to determine which map to use. I won't be able to conduct an election. So that's why it wasn't heard on its those maps weren't heard on their own merits in the state anymore. Um, we went through, and then of course Cleo Fields got elected with the current map that we have now, the redistrict map, and that's why we are where we are. And then later on, it went on to the Supreme Court to be heard
So
and
here's what's
finalized.
interesting, Bert. On one hand, you are on opposite sides of, say, the governor and the secretary of state with your election machines violating the Louisiana Constitution case.
Yeah,
And on this court case, you're kind of on the side in some way, shape, or form with the governor and Nancy Landry, because
yeah.
they kind of
I,
need your case to get settled, to be able to for well, they need your case to get settled for the governor to have bragging rights that he gave Louisiana a gift despite what he's done in the beginning, and Nancy Landry needs your case to win and give you a victory so she can conduct her elections, and Louisiana needs your case to win because so we'll have a non gerrymandered district. So it's almost like you have insurance, on either case, right?
yeah, it is. Look, first of all, I call this our case, the people's case. It's just my name on it. Well, I want to make that clear. I am not taking. Um, I don't have that big of an ego. Okay, the governor might. He wants to take full responsibility for it. It says it started out as Callais versus Landry, meaning Secretary of State Nancy Landry, because it was a map and it had to deal with elections. Somehow, through all of this is going on, it's now become. Then it became Callais versus Louisiana, but now it's Louisiana versus Callais. It's like it almost sounds like, Bert, is the state suing you?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I'm like, no, I think the governor's suing himself. If you really think about it, because he's claiming that he's the orchestrator of all this, right?
Right.
So it really needs to look at. I mean, is he suing himself? That's what you're making this sound like,
Is he
Governor.
suing himself? Is he shooting himself in the foot with all these stories? Yeah, that's kind of what I'm curious about.
It is really been screwed around. Yeah. So again, I got to bring it back to simplicity and common sense, and just stay with playing checkers versus this chess game that they want to talk about. And I can play chess now. Don't get me wrong, but you know, I'm talking about for the average citizen out there, just the guy who wants to go get his job done, but treated fairly. Um, that's who I'm here for. I have the time to be able to, go through this stuff and go to the legislature and testify and listen to what's going on and send it back to them as the way I see it, the way a common man views it. And but man, this is really it's turned into a quagmire. It's a
Well,
mess. But again, war is messy. Uh, People say, oh, the only thing difference between this kind of war and the war that I experienced is, thank God, it's not kinetic. A kinetic war. But
right.
there's war is messy regardless. Politics can get messy. That I've learned. I've never wanted to be involved in politics. Ever. I just never, that's why I just steered away from it. I did my job. I served my time in the military. But now the way things are going, I cannot sit on the sofa and just watch this madness go on around me without trying to bring some kind of decency to this chaos, some kind of understanding to this chaos.
So, Bert, before we wrap up, I want to take just for a quick minute or two, and a real quick minute or two, not a Bill and William minute or two,
Hmm.
but a quick minute or two. The next issue that you are shining the light on is carbon capture. So,
Absolutely.
so do you want to give everybody a quick 30-second synopsis on what's going on, what you're doing, and what they need to look out for?
Right. So, first of all, again, I'm learning this is a constitutional issue when they talk about eminent domain. Instead of it being, eminent domain is used for the government when it comes to a common good for the public. Okay, this has nothing to do with that. This is um, this is corporate good. This is corporate greed that's involved in this. And that is not constitutional. It's not, the Constitution was not written for corporate gain. Okay, it was there to protect the people.
So let me
And
let me let me let me interrupt for 1 second,
right.
because what's happening with carbon capture in the simplest nutshell,
Mm.
and we'll say an almond, and not and not an acorn or a walnut, um, is that somewhere along the line, carbon capture was presented to the Louisiana legislature as being something that would be good for the state to bring in more oil and gas revenues into the state. And then somewhere in there, they snuck in that they would need that they would need to use the carbon or the tax credits from the federal government and use eminent domain to pump it underneath personal property in the state of Louisiana, and which in essence would violate people's future mineral rights because they can't penetrate the
And the
carbon capture
surface,
bubbles, but also health wise, because if that stuff leaks up, it puts the public in danger. Then if
yep.
that was ever talked about, now that all of that's come to light, we're finding that Governor Landry wanted carbon capture. The Louisiana legislature, most of which voted for it, but not knowing what they were getting. They were sold a bill of goods. Let's give them that. Now that everything has the light shined on it, it's divided up the Louisiana legislature between the ones who are doubling down on it and the ones who are now fighting against it. You have injected yourself to say, hey, look, carbon capture, the tax credits are a scam on the American people
Mm.
because it is public corporations using the guise of eminent domain uh, instead of the government using eminent domain. Corporations are going to use eminent domain for their own profit and violate the people's rights. Do I have that correct, Bert?
Wow. You said a lot there, man. I try to keep it more a little simpler than that.
I would love that for the listeners.
Eminent domain.
For the listeners, let's do it.
Yeah, the eminent domain is basically being abused, okay, to it's land theft. And Senator Sharon Hewitt put in a bill and it passed while everybody else was looking at fighting the mandates. Nobody really understood the CCS stuff. So she put in a bill to make carbon capture and define it as a common good. And when you look at what's actually happening with that, CO2 being pumped in the ground, it's not storage. It's not for a use. It's not for a end product. You cannot, once it becomes and mixes with moisture and water and that kind of becomes carbonic acid, that's getting into the science of it all. You can't reverse the process. And you can, but it's very expensive. Why did you do it in the first place if it's so expensive?
So you're going a little bit more detail on what I said.
Yeah.
I know I might have said it a
And
little bit
so,
differently, but let's
yeah,
kind of move quickly forward so
yeah.
that way the people, because we're gonna at a
So it's
later
land
time.
theft. It's land theft, and it's a violation of the Louisiana Constitution. Okay, we have a right in the federal Constitution. It's a right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. In the Louisiana Constitution, it's a right to life, liberty, and property. You have a right, protected right to your own property. And if you're not in agreement with this, yet your neighbors might be in agreement with this, they can take yours. They can force you into that. That is unconstitutional. That's the constitutional aspect. Then you get into the science aspect of it all with water contamination, possible eruptions, those kind of untested things. Even the pipeline. Normally, a pipeline is about $50 a foot on average. Okay, we're dealing with this corrosive stuff with CO2 when it mixes with water and makes carbonic acid. You're looking at a pipeline that's $5,000 per square foot. And Exxon is going to profit, not the public. We're going to create jobs, yeah, temporary jobs. But how many jobs are we going to potentially destroy? You're looking at a place like Forest Hill. I was in the landscape business, and they destroy the water in and around southern part of Alexander and Rapides Parish. You're going to be killing a $4 billion industry because they won't be able to water those plants with contaminated water. You understand? And
Right.
that's a lot of folks that's employed in that realm of that industry, the nursery
Okay.
business.
So
And
we're
that's what no one is talking about. The destruction that's going to potentially happen to this state, not to mention capping off future oil reserves that we do have here and could drill in the future.
because they can't drill through a carbon dioxide or a carbon
Layer.
dioxide bubble that's buried in the ground.
From what
So,
I've
all right,
learned, yeah, from
what?
what I've learned, they could, but it's going to be more costly and more hazardous to do so.
All right. So let's summarize everything. We're going to wrap up right now in the next minute or two.
Mhm.
Bert, are you filing anything with carbon capture, or can you not tell us? Let's put a little bow. Let's put a bow on the carbon capture subject.
My role in carbon capture is to connect as many people from as many different parishes in this state as possible. But there is a lawsuit that may be coming down the road by another veteran that was in the Air Force. He really dives into this stuff. He's the Air Force officer. I'm just an enlisted guy. I make it happen. They're the ones do all the planning. It still kind of works that way. And yeah, he's digging into it. He's looking for attorneys, but he's got grounds for a lawsuit because it's an unconstitutional operation what they have going on.
Bert, I'm going to be bringing you on down the road to talk more about this,
Hmm.
to talk more about what's happening, to update people on your first lawsuit on the election machines that you say violate our Louisiana Constitution, which that's can be read and is very clear and easy to understand. Your second lawsuit, which is about congressional maps, which we're waiting to hear what happens from the Supreme Court, the federal Supreme Court, the U.S. Supreme Court, that is. And that will be, and then we'll have to see, you know, um, Governor Landry's response to that. Well, from what you've pointed out. And then carbon capture is something that is really, no pun intended, but is really welling up or, has kind of risen up here recently. And you're going to be covering that a little bit more. Bert, any final words that you want to point out today?
Get involved. If for the listeners and the viewers out there, do what you can. And it comes to elections, we have to protect our country. We have to protect our state. Um, if you can, if you can get involved with the legislature, go to LaCag, check out what's going on with them on that website. It's lacag.org. Get involved in organizations. Sometimes you're not going to find it unless you look for it. And I'm asking you to start looking. Please start looking.
I love it. Bert, while we're looking, can you tell me one last question? Where are we losing freedom the most in America that we need to look for?
Goodness gracious. The first thought that came to mind is this is how Rome fell. They were too involved in entertainment. Sports is supposed to be recreational. It's not supposed to be a life. And people get all upset when LSU loses or the Saints lose. They freak out. And I used to be involved in football a lot. I loved the sport. I played it. I coached it. Everything. But I'm not just picking on football. The entertainment. It's a waste of time. Your country is falling apart around you. Take a pause. Get involved in what's actually meaningful, and that's become a little bit more civic minded. That's my play, my plea to people, my prayer. People
Bert,
start getting more involved in their civics.
that was an awesome answer. It was original. I appreciate it. Hang on tight 1 second while I close out the show. So hang on right there 1 minute while I ask everybody to please not only visit some of my sponsors, go visit some of them. If you're local and you want to get a great po' boy, go to Quarter View for a great meal. Go to Shortstop Po' Boy for a great po' boy. Visit Signet Landing, get an alligator tour while you're there. Visit your local businesses and support them. Practice your medical freedom. You've heard all this before, but what I can't emphasize enough is to please share the show, share this content, share it as a podcast or share it as a video, whichever way you are looking at it. Please offer it to others because the best and only way that we are going to save our country is to get other people involved. And you might say, I don't want to go fix elections, or I don't want to file a lawsuit, I don't want to do all that. It's as saving our country is as simple as voting. It's as simple as bringing somebody to go vote. Go vote is one of the best things you can do. I always say, despite what you think about whether our elections are under attack or not, whether they're accurate, honest, fair, whatever the case may be, I believe that if we had close between a 90 and 100% of people voting, we wouldn't be able to have election problems in the first place because the people in control of the elections know that people are involved and watching. That's my call to you. Share the show and get involved. Thank you so much. The next interview will be coming up here in the podcast very soon. Keep an eye out for it. Have a great day. God bless Louisiana and God bless America.
God bless America.